Most videographers, when you hire them, they think I'm making a video for you, for the person that hired me, right? So that's the natural tendency. So like if I bring a new person on, they'll make a video and I'll be like, this is terrible, this is about the speaker. And they're like, well, yeah, we're making a speaker video. No, we're not making a speaker video. The character is your target audience. Absolutely. Across the board, 100%, your target audience is the character in the story, and they have to know that they're the character. So that's the problem with traditional demo reels, is that it's an entire video about you. And nobody cares, you know, they only care about them. What the problem is that you'll serve them, their needs. So your target audience is the character, and their problem, their central issues, is what you need to focus on. And you are the guide. That's where you come in. That's where your demo reel begins to function. As the guide, that's you and your story. Who gives them a plan? Your change model. You give them the plan and you give them the action steps for change. And you make it so it's up to them whether or not they're going to have the personal or company change, or the person or company will suffer. That's going to be up to them. And this is the model that I use when I create videos, when I create demo reels. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to pull back and I would like to watch David's video again with stopping it and show you how each of these apply and where they apply. Cool? Because then you'll be able to see, oh wow, there's a real exact structure, and that's why it worked or didn't work.
Plus, correction, 0, 0.
We went to the moon 6 times between 1969 and 1972. We landed 12 astronauts on the moon, brought them back safely. We're talking about going again today. And what NASA will admit, if you probe a little bit, is that we've lost much of the knowledge from the original Apollo missions. In fact, we could not go to the moon today if we had to. Specifically, we've lost the knowledge of how to build the Saturn V rocket. The engineers who built that rocket were retired out of NASA in the 90s, and we've lost the blueprints. No kidding. I tell that story because it serves as an assumption that we have in our society today, that once we have achieved a level of performance in our organizations, we can always sustain that level of performance. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. Unless we find ways to transfer and retain the critical human, social, and structural knowledge that we've developed in many of our organizations, we're not going to be able to do that.
Cool. So we have character, him saying, this happened in NASA, so that when someone's hearing it, they're saying, oh, that could happen to us, because that's a story, that's how we listen to stories. And right after he says, you know, and this is an underlying assumption that we have that's false. That this is, this once we've got this information, what we do this, once we have this down, we're just always going to have it, unless we do the following, you know. And then, right after I've said character and problem, now we meet the guide. But those two things have to be there first. And a lot of times people do the guide up front. They show how good they are, or how well they deliver content, or how amazing they are, and they haven't gotten the character and the problem down first. And this is another important thing. If you've got testimonials, you just use them strategically. The reason that I used this testimonial in this point, who cares who Kevin Moody is? It says he's the authority, right? So I would use that testimonial then, not later. And when I ask if I'm not working on a video and one of my editors is, I'm always asking them, why did you do that right then? Because they're like, it's a good testimonial. Well, what's the point of doing it then in the story? The story is, we've had subject, we've had problem, and now we meet the guide. And what the guide does is the guide tells us he knows the issues. So the next 3 clips, the interview and the next 2 clips are all guide related. And I'm going to show you how to find those. But they're all not David solving a problem and not giving a plan, not giving any solutions, but him saying, I understand what you're going through. So let's watch him do that.
The problem is most CEOs and many senior executives get overly focused and are overly focused today on recruiting. Where are we going to get our new young talent? Which is absolutely critical to do. They need to do that. But they also need to balance that against the older workers and experience base they're letting walk out the door.
You think about the transformation you've seen in your work life, from work life before personal computers to what we have today, where systems underlie everything we do. Well, they're just symptomatic of the transformation that has gone on in our workplace, the unbelievable explosion of knowledge and our dependence on computer networks, explosions in scientific knowledge, pharmaceutical drug development, and explosions in increases in managerial knowledge and managing distributed global operations. All this knowledge has developed and means that when people potentially leave organizations today, they leave with knowledge that didn't exist 30 years ago. These issues that we're talking about tonight, the changing workforce and knowledge transfer, always have to be discussed in a strategic context. You don't go to leadership and talk about these issues just as tactical issues. They have a direct bearing on your ability to implement your business strategy. If your strategy is around innovation, degrading your knowledge base, for the most part, seriously degrades your ability to continue to innovate in the product lines that you're talking about.
So all of that was guide, and I had marked it down in my notes when I outlined his presentations as guide, because he was making observations. If your plans are this is not going to help. But he's not prescribing anything yet. He's just saying, look, this is where you're at. These are the things you're doing, and it's not working. So if you're ignoring this entire side of things, where you have people leaving the office and they haven't mentored anyone, they haven't truly transferred things. So he's making these observations, and then we have this person was the highest rated of our meeting, meaning that he is a guide. You know, that he really understands, that he got it, that speaker understood, which is why we rated him high. Because no speaker who doesn't understand does. So that one fit in. And so we've gotten character, we've gotten the problem, and now we've met our guide. And right now is when I switch to plan. So you'll see in these next ones, now we know that he's trusted, he's the authority. His was the highest rated. He's made really good observations that are totally true. And we're moving to him giving a plan.
I don't know one organization today that isn't worried about accelerating the development of their next generation of leaders. They realize the leadership pipeline is so thin in the middle of the organization that they are really at risk of being able to support growth and cost control and innovation in the future.
What you need to do is you need to focus on future workforce capabilities. You need to keep three things in mind. It's not just about retirements, it's about retention of mid-careers and recruiting. You need to think about all three of these together. Because ultimately, knowledge transfer and knowledge retention is about one of two things. Either retaining good employees, young or old, so they're around to share knowledge or acquire it, or actually the actual process of transferring the knowledge. This is an incredibly strategic issue for many organizations. You need to...
We're moving into action. So there were prescriptions. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. This is what you need to do. Right? So now those fit, and they were part of the plan, which is why I needed them in that place as a part of this story model. And the last thing is that it just needs to pick up, and it needs to get them to a place where they want to do something after the video. Again, this is just to give example. I just recently brought on a new editor, and he's a great guy, and he did this video, and he worked so hard on it, and he's like, so what do you think? And it just wrapped up so perfectly. It was like a bow was on top. It was just like, and she says something special, and it's over. And you felt so much closure that you didn't need to do anything. It's like, oh, that was nice. The video needs to end a little bit before they have all the answers. It needs to end before you've given them everything. You need to not show them some of long talks necessarily. You just need to get them moving. And so we just move into action, and everything from here on out is either action plan, and it's saying if you don't do this, right, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Get started now, because every month you wait, every quarter you wait, reduces the options you have. The point is, There are all kinds of ways we can lose knowledge that have a direct bearing on the performance of our business. And this is why this issue is so important.
Cool. So that's the breakdown, the behind the scenes of the video. And I would say that that is the same structure that I follow in every video I do, no matter what, but it looks different in every video. But behind the scenes, there's a structure, and that makes it, one, easy for me to know how to do it, and two, what to look for. So when people say, oh, I can't believe you had to go through all my content, I don't mind, because as I'm going through it, I have a very specific plan, and I have a way of marking everything, which I'll show you, plan, guide, and it gives me a clear path for where I'm headed.